Welcome back to Ball Over Passion. How you guys doing?
Good, bro. Not too bad. Not too bad. It's a little bit earlier this time, so my bad. I was late before Chris says anything dumb, uh, which is like normal. But yeah, sorry I'm late.
Yeah, so we're basically going to be previewing the Wolves game. I personally am excited because I've just got this fire under my belly basically because I just want to celebrate again. So yeah, I just want to hear your thoughts on the game. But before we start, how crucial do you think this game could be to our top four chances? I just want to start with Curran.
Yeah, I mean it's quite clearly a crucial game. They are in the race, and of course it's key to maintain momentum in this now coming into the run-in. I think the main issue that we need to talk about, and I'm sure George will talk about it because he's talked about it constantly, is when you're playing teams outside the big six teams. That's where you farm points, and that's where you need to be consistent. And if you're consistent against those teams, then you're looking pretty steady to get into at least the top six, and then proceed to the top four as you start to get points around people around that bracket. So the Spurses, the Leicesters, Wolves, these kinds of teams, Brighton. So you have to look at how we're progressing in terms of how you want to look at a top four race, and we don't, as we've said, we've not been too annoyed at the Man City results or the Liverpool at Anfield, but it's been more the Man United one was a key one for me. I think we could have won that game. I mean, these are the kinds of games where you're thinking you need to take points off around you, and that's the key issue. So very, very important game.
CK, I just wanted to hear your opinion. So we all agree that Corinne said that it's a very important game. We need to get points, but do you think the importance that we're placing on this game, particularly, like, do you think it deserves that hype, or do you think we can still afford to drop points in this game and still continue on our way?
Well, obviously we do have a game in hand on them, and we're 2 points ahead of them. So they are close to us, and we do need to win the game because if you lose, they go above you, and vice versa. But I think the game is important just because of how good Wolves have been, and have been better on form than a lot of the teams competing. They're seventh in the league, so they are in and around us, and they're a good team. Obviously, we did beat them recently, 1-0, and it was convincing in terms of the chances, but in general play, it wasn't as convincing as we would like to be. So I want the team to, and I think they would want to as well, especially with the red card and the narrative surrounding the game and the big missed chances. I think the team will want to set a statement that we can beat the teams around us. Because obviously it's all good and well being the teams below you, but being the teams around you that are contending for top four as well is very crucial. I do think we will win, but and I do think it's very important to not lose this game.
Willow. So obviously, you saw the game that we played against Wolves last a couple of weeks ago. What do you think will be what do you think we'll expect from this game? Do you think that Wolves will come at us in a different way? I mean, what are your thoughts initially?
I think it will, as much as we're at home and we've been amazing at home, I think it could be a more difficult game as in aspect to, they've got Pedro Neto back, who's probably one of their best outlets. So that's going to be a struggle for us to deal with. Also, we have a poor record against Wolves at home. Since being up, we've played them 4 times, we've drew 3 times, and we've lost once. I still expect us to win the game, but I do expect a difficult game as always with Wolves. They're a team where normally you rather win 1-0 or you lose 1-0. And last time out, we won 1-0. So let's hope we can get on that side again.
Yeah, and George, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to be a much tougher reverse fixture, as I was kind of saying, even in the first kind of leg, if you will. When we played them a couple of weeks ago, I felt that with a lot of their injuries that we would probably be in for a lot of of an easier game. And I think if you look back at that game, there was a lot of goals that we left on the pitch, and we made that game a little bit tougher than we really needed it to be. Of course, with all the controversy that happened, in that game. But I think when you're looking at it right now, of course, you've got, Pedro Neto back, as Curran said, and, he looks back to kind of pre-ACL form in a sense. Like, I haven't seen any lessening of his explosivity. He's still very much somebody that can kind of create separation and be that difference. But it kind of brings new challenges to Wolves that I don't think I've seen anybody on the timeline talk about, where in a sense that Bruno Lage has kind of forced them into this deeper block. And, you do see, kind of Neves drop deep, and they rely on their half space wingers to kind of drop in to progress play. But when they have somebody like Neto, who's more of a consistent outlet kind of on the wing, you basically have the option to be a lot more adventurous. And with that comes a lot different challenges. And when you do that, you end up spreading the midfield play. And when you do that and you increase spaces that, Ruben Neves has to cover, he suffers. And so for me, that's going to be the key kind of this game. The big issue that I had last game was going zonal marking on Ruben Neves, and that was not a good decision. We got ripped down the right-hand side with Trincao for doing that, and I think that was a very, very kind of poor decision, especially how we've had a template for 3 at the back teams with this team. If you look back at Leicester Spurs, we talked about it in the previous preview, but kind of our goal was really going with, those pseudo 10 kind of wingers route, but having a kind of Lacazette or an Odegaard sitting on their lone DM, aka Ruben Neves. And I think with João Moutinho back again, you basically have somebody that's going to be an alternative outlet, deeper, but also that higher outlet. So what you're looking at is a very different type of setup. And I do worry if we go with what seems to be our main plan A right now, with having the Granit Xhaka higher up, because I think it leaves us really exposed in midfield, especially when you've got now 2 progressors that you need to worry about and a stronger outlet, a better outlet than they've had. And if you give that space to Trincao, it's kind of fine. He'll make the wrong decision. But if you give that space to Ruben Pedro Neto, rather, you're asking for some trouble. So I think for me, there's a lot of interesting kind of tactical tweaks that we're going to have to look at in this game. I do expect, Wolves to be up for it, to kind of go for it as well, just based off their comments. And so for me, that actually is better for us. I find that when we allow teams to kind of sit and try to dictate play, it's a little bit harder for us to exact our own game plan. Of course, we've seen cases in the season where we've done it both ways, but in general, we really do well against teams that come at us, because the more space we have, ironically, we like it. So it's it'll be a very interesting game, but something I do hope we see a couple tweaks on, because I could see some issues, especially down that right-hand side.
Yeah, Karen. I wanted to just also ask you, like, how different do you think this game would be different to the away game? Like, do you think the atmosphere could obviously affect the kind of performance? And are we expecting to see anything different from the way we set out and just play, really?
I mean, there are multiple things. So first of all, as George mentioned, Pedro Neto will be back. The atmosphere obviously will play a mark, but the main thing for me will be, I feel like the first game, there were it was very choppy. I don't know if you guys remember. It was sort of like you had a period at the beginning where we dominated, and then they kind of weaseled their way back into it towards the end. But I feel like from what the Brentford performance, it feels like this will be much more a sustained pressure versus a low block kind of game, and you're going to have a case where the most of the game from Wolves will be in transition, trying to get out and using Pedro Neto as that outlet. Whereas with us, it will be very much, we're going to be, quite high into their half, trying to break down that block, trying to rotate off the ball to try and get into spaces, to find space to create chances. And if they are going to hurt us, it's very much going to be off the Jimenez Neto route. I don't really see it being a very much sort of like because Podence in the first game had a quite good game, I felt, and he was quite good in transition. I don't feel like he'll have the same effect. I think it'll be through Neto. He's, as George mentioned, he's probably going to be back to, I don't know if he's going to be completely back fit, because he just came off, I think it was 10 minutes the first game he came back, so it will be interesting to see his dynamic. But in terms of the crowd as well, we do seem a lot more comfortable at home. I don't really see us conceding a ton of chances. I see us looking to wrestle space into their own half, and in terms of how they build up out of the back, it'll be very different. Be a very much a they'll try and build up, but will kind of get stopped a lot of the time. So it will
But
be
Zima,
interesting to see.
you know what we're going to get in this game though that's going to be extremely different from the last game is Ruben Neves was absolutely one deeper, kind of dictating play. And the reason that we went zonal is because we could trust that there was no Yao Matinho outball on the other side. And when you had De Donker, he was somebody that was more of just like a transition floater. That's not going to be the case in this game. You're going to have two deep progressors that are very comfortable, press resistant against players that are smart to dribble through pressure. And you're going to have now two outlets, not just one. Okay. You know, Podence definitely was a ball to feet person who could be an outlet for them. But, you know, Trincao was just somebody that we had to rely on making very poor decisions. They got a lot of very good opportunities, but if you guys remember, very poor shots. And that was just because, you know, Trincao was making horrible decisions. But you have, you know, Pedro Neto now making those decisions. And you've also got a secondary option deep that can progress play. Very similar to how, you know, Bernardo Silva, when Rodri was getting pissed off, would come deep, and you'd now have two people. If you notice, though, in that game, we didn't do this Xhaka thing. We didn't do that. We had a much more traditional pivot. We had a much more traditional press. And I'm very much worried if we do go towards this game without adopting a similar City type of approach. And that doesn't mean, again, that you don't have to be pressuring, you know, on the ball. Against City, we dictated play. You can totally do this with a lone or a double pivot. But for me, when you have that threat of two deep and two high outlets, you need to match up in the middle of the park. And we already saw a very light case in Wolves away where they outnumbered us. They did. And, you know, the reason that they could do that is because we didn't really follow the Trincao. That Trincao-Samito link up was really a big problem for us. And, you know, we kind of defended space as opposed to the man. And I think that's not something that we can do in this game at home. I really want us to sit on, have Lacazette, who has this home fever of just playing well at home, have him sit on Ruben Neves and ask, you know, Bukayo and Odegaard to kind of control that, you know, left half space where Yao Matinho will probably operate. So for me, I think that that's going to be a very important decision. Do you go zonal? Do you go man-to-man? And, you know, we've gone man-to-man in pretty much every other three at the back team that we faced. So it's going to be a decision that I hope Mikel doesn't do because I could see us getting outnumbered.
Yeah, Willows. So I'm sure you know Arteta basically said, you know, everybody's fit and firing. So basically, everybody's ready to play. Would you bring back Tomiyasu in the starting lineup? And actually, funnily enough, I saw your comments on Lacazette over the weekend as well. Like, I'm sure you weren't happy with his performance. Would you drop him for Martinelli?
I mean, it's different to what I do compared to what Arteta does. Arteta doesn't like changing or winning team as much. I think the Tomiyasu Cedric thing, I think he will do that because that's a non-negotiable. I think it's a no-brainer. I don't think there's many people, apart from one guy on Twitter, actually said Cedric's better than Tomiyasu. But apart from that guy, I don't think there's anyone that wouldn't want Tomiyasu. And he looks ready now. I think he's back in, so I think he'll definitely come back in. But I don't think he'll drop Lacazette. I personally would drop Lacazette. I'd love to. I think his last couple performances have been absolutely appalling. And I think he's lucky not to be costing us points at the moment. He's getting bailed out by the young guns in Smith Rowe and Saka. So I would love Martinelli to come in and finally play that number 9 role. Or some people want Smith Rowe and a false 9 and Martinelli on the wing. I'd rather have either compared to Lacazette being up top, even up at home. Normally Lacazette's better at home, but even against Brentford, I thought he was absolutely horrific.
CK. So what would your ideal 11 be for tomorrow?
Obviously the back five, so Tommy, Ramsdale, Ben White and Gabriel and Tierney, and then I'm not sure. For me, I'd probably go with a pivot rather than a three. But if we're gonna go with the same three, so Odegaard, Partey and Xhaka, and then Saka, Martinelli and Smith Rowe, because obviously with Lacazette, I don't think he'll be dropped because he's now captain now. We're winning. There's no urgent need to take him out of the team because even though he's not been good, he's not necessarily costing us. But I think Martinelli's he's definitely fit and he's firing. So I'd bring Martinelli back in if we could, and then keep Smith Rowe there. But I'd definitely bring in Tomiyasu, even though Cedric's been good. But if he's not 100% 100% fit, then I'd keep him out and just leave Cedric there.
George, I mean, to be fair, like you said that you don't want us to play the same way that we did against Brentford. Like, what would you change from that starting 11 versus Wolves?
I mean, everyone knows my thoughts on Martinelli 9. I've been so loud on that, but beyond that, it's really as simple as changing a little bit more just how we set up, right? Like I've been talking a lot at Brentford and stuff about how positional fluidity was so awesome to see, and I think people get fixed on this pivot versus lone pivot thing, but really the decision to go man marking or zonal on Ruben Neves depends on who you have higher up the pitch, right? Like you're not going to go man to man with Granit Xhaka as an 8. He can't do that role, period. So you're not going to do that. So by playing him 8, it kind of hurts you in both areas of the pitch in one sense. So it leaves you vulnerable on the Trincao opposition behind you, but also it means that you can't go man-to-man on Ruben Neves. And that's just because if you have Granit Xhaka higher up the pitch, he's not able to operate in tight spaces like that. We know that. And so a lot of what we've used, even him in this high 8 role, by the way, is less of him on the ball. It's more about him controlling the second balls and as the middle third. Right, like he actually has been quite poor on the ball, except for a couple instances against Brentford where I thought, you know what, it's kind of coming back. He was really incisive, but for me, I probably wouldn't change much of what Chris was saying. The only difference is I probably have the pivot, like I've been saying this whole time, and I'd probably still put Emile Smith-Rowe over Martinelli, because for me in this game it's going to be a matter of attacking those half spaces, and I need kind of dribbling drive in those half spaces. I don't need space out to in, because that's going to be covered. Facing a 3 at the back system, you're going to have Semedo out wide, so having Martinelli as that touchline winger coming in, you're going to reduce a lot of what makes him good. And so you're going to need free movement. And I kind of want somebody off the bench that's a goal threat. So the only tweak, if I'm going with what Arteta will do with not dropping Lacazette, will have Smith-Rowe there. And I would keep him from the Brentford. And I would probably switch it at like 60 minutes or as soon as possible and put Martinelli up top, essentially. That would probably be the only thing that I'd do.
Do you think Pepe doesn't get a shot? I mean, he came on and he had a very good cameo against Brentford, I feel. Do you not? I feel like, personally, we might need a different kind of attacking outlet, coming into the starting 11. Like someone like Pepe could obviously be a shout at home. Like, do you think could possibly start, or?
Well, the issue with Pepe is like he had a really good cameo, right? And like we talked about that kind of on the review. But the issue is like, what are you asking him to do? So he's not going to replace Saka. So ideally, you'd probably be saying touchline left winger, right? But then again, is he better than Martinelli at that role? So if you're asking someone to hold width and then also be diligent going backwards because you're facing a Trincao on that side, like Wolves, their best side is their right-hand side. So defensively, you're going to want, if you do a touchline winger, which again, I wouldn't do, you would ideally want that touchline winger to be diligent in his defensive duties, right? So I actually just don't think this is the game for Pepe. Maybe it's a finisher if you really want to change a little bit and kind of change things up where you'll almost have more people at the back to protect a lead and just leave him as an outlet up top. Like I could see that scenario happening, but definitely not as a starter, because as a touchline winger, he's not better than Martinelli. And I wouldn't even do that role against Wolves. I think it's a bad decision to even play that way.
Yeah, no, to be fair, I mean, I agree with that. It's just one of those things where whether you want continuity or you just want someone that, adds different. I feel like, personally, I would have added something different just because, Wolves probably played us, the first game away from home, in their home, and they probably have knows what to expect. So I just thought, possibly we could add something different and see, what they make out of it. But Curran, what do you make of George's comments? I mean, do you prefer to go with the pivot like we saw against City, or prefer to play how we played against Brentford?
See, the thing is, when you think about what the issue right now is to do with, we were playing a 3 at the back team. And when you're playing a 3 at the back team, you need the width out wide to be able to penetrate that fullback centre-back channel. And the best way to do that is to have that left inside channel be occupied by a person who's very good at taking on one-on-one and finding space. So for me, I personally go with the City setup. It's difficult because we played the way we played last time and it worked very well. And I know Mikel doesn't like changing a winning formula, but when it comes to 3 at the backs, we've been very consistent with how we've gone about it. So it's very, very easy to just go, okay, Thomas, Granite, just sit in the pivot, push your outlets higher, and make sure that they're hitting that channel and being able to go 1-on-1 with the outside fullback, outside centre back, and try and find space in behind that way. So for me, I go City route. Yeah, I think it makes it quite simple at the end of the day.
Willow, is there anything that you fear about Wolves, like, or do you feel like there's nothing that scares you? You already know what to expect.
I don't know. As I said, last game it wasn't as much because they didn't really have that many outlets, and as George touched upon, it was Trincao. Trincao actually, I thought, because of what happened in the structure, and he actually ripped Tierney a new one for most of the game, just because how the structure was. Tierney was getting pulled out because Xhaka was further up, and Trincao just had all the space, and luckily he's not good enough to be able to do anything in the space. But yeah, I am worried if we do go that kind of route and do play like that, and it is Pedro Neto in there, then we are going to have problems. Then there is going to be a lot better chances created, and Pedro Neto can have some chances himself, and he's a lot more clinical than someone like Trincao. So there is definitely things to worry about. It's just how we play, and if we can counteract that. I hope we learned our lesson from the last time we played them.
I've seen this comment about Podence. I mean, Podence for me just reminds me of Hazard, not because of his on-the-ball quality. I just feel like just the way he moves, just his low sense of gravity. But do you think he could cause us any harm tomorrow?
I think
with that bunda.
I think with Podence, it's really the build that people praise, like how he looks. He's nippy, he's small. He looks like Hazard with the hair. People just compare him to Hazard because he's small and nippy. I think he's good and a smart player, and did cause us some problems last time, 2 weeks ago, where he kept switching the ball to Trincao to go 1v1 versus Tierney, and luckily we didn't have a better player there. But he's a very smart player, but I don't think, even with the Hazard comparisons, I don't think he'll ever get the end product that Hazard could produce, or the end product to really be a scary winger in the league. He'd always be a good player, but I don't think the end product is there for him to be as hyped as he really is.
All right, fine. So we've talked about initial thoughts. We know we pretty much have an idea of what the 11 would probably be like. I just want to round it all up and just hear your thoughts on the scoreline. What are your predictions? I'm going to go with you, Curran. What's your thoughts on the scoreline? What do you think is going to happen? Yeah,
I think it'll be quite a tight game, to be honest. I don't think, in terms of the scoreline, I don't think it'll be tight in terms of possession or where the play is. I think it's quite clear that the possession will be mostly in Wolves' half. The issue I have is I don't see us racking up like a massive amount of goals. I don't see a 4-0. I've gone with 1-0. I was torn between 1 and 2-0. I don't think they score. I do think that we do win this game, and I don't think we go. I think we take that next step into this top 4 race, but I don't see it being, a massive thumping that we've all wanted this season at the Emirates. I think it's just a 1-0 and then just calm, see it through.
CK?
I'm not with Curran. I don't think it's going to be that game. I think we're going to rip them a new one. I think we're going to do very well and create a lot of chances like we always do. And there has to be a game where we score more than one, where we deserve more than one. Because even versus them, we create a lot of big chances that we missed with Laka and other players. But Laka in general, he missed a lot of chances. But with Emil and Saka, I think if they both start, which I think they both will, they're a lot more clinical than Laka and have been a lot more clinical recently. I think we'll score minimum 2 goals. I went with what does that go? 3-0? 2-0?
We'll see.
Which one?
What did you put?
I thought you went 4-0.
What do you put down on?
Yeah, 4, bro.
Before this year, I was like I think we win 4-0 or 2-0, but
hold it.
What did you put on the graphic, CK?
Yeah, he put 4.
Let me talk. What the hell? Let me talk.
He put 4.
No, I didn't. I put 3.
This guy's a cheat, boys. I want it in the comments.
No, you ain't changing no graphics now, bro. George.
Yeah, no, I don't agree with Curran either. I even said it, last game too. I thought, and despite all the fear that I talked about on territory, like we left multiple goals on the pitch, and if we were clinical, it would have been a very similar score line. So I've gone 3-1. I definitely think that we'll be caught out on an outlet or a counter, whether that's either Neto or somebody's going to get released. I can definitely see that happening, but I really see us pump them as well, and I see it because I think that they're going to be a little bit more willing to come out. And that's going to come with it some different challenges. Again, everyone keeps talking about Bruno Lage's defensive record and everything like that, but they haven't had a reliable outlet that they consistently used because, again, Bruno Lage even had, Adama Traore off the bench. He never really used him consistently in the 90 minutes. And so they weren't a team that was built to play in space. And so obviously when you compact space, you're going to have a good defensive record. But when you add people that make you a little bit more adventurous, that's where I think a lot of the tougher teams and a lot of the tougher managers, struggle to really balance. So I definitely think that we're going to see a 3-1 with a really well-deserved, victory. Because, guys, I don't know if you guys have been looking at our form and even some of the numbers, and not everyone loves stats and all that stuff, but we are due a smacking. Like we have been playing very well. We have been racking up not just good chances, but great chances. And we've just been very non-clinical. So we are due a huge smacking. And for me, when you start to add 3 at the back tax, you start to add somebody that likes to come out, you add the occasion, the Emirates. I think it's a possibility.
Willow?
2-0 to the Arsenal away from home. I got the 1-0 right. I think because we're I think because we're at home, I think we do play better when we're at home. We've got a better record when we're at home. So I think we will add to that. I think we have left goals on the pitch, but I don't think this is a team that you go and get 3 or 4 against. I don't even know how many times they've conceded more than 2 this season. I don't think it's very often. So I don't see it, especially if Lacazette's starting as well. If Lacazette's starting, I just can't see us being the heavy hitter against Wolves. I think Saka will score. He's scored it in 6 of his last Premier League starts. He's got 5 goals. So I think he'll continue that record. He's been phenomenal. And I think Emmy Smith-Rowe, I think he continues his goal scoring form as well. His ball striking, just everything about him at the moment. He just breathes confidence. He's just incredible footballer. So I think he continues his goal scoring form, and we're an absolute wall at the back as well. It was a shame that we conceded our goal in the 90th minute like we did against Brentford. And I hope we learn from our mistake and we don't do it again.
Yeah, no, I'm going for 2-0 as well. I feel like I don't think Wolves have enough, to be fair. Just looking at how they've been scoring in the recent weeks, they've been scoring against abysmal defenses, like even Leicester. I mean, they've been struggling to defend all season, and just they had their fair share. But for me, I feel like we'll lock them up and we'll get a goal from Smith-Rowe and probably, I don't know, Gabriel again or something like that. But we'll see. It's gonna bring it back on the screen. So that's our predictions. So Corin's gone for 1-0, George has gone for 3-1, CK has gone for 3-0. So that's 3-0 CK.
Wait, so you guys all think that we have a clean sheet?
I do, yes.
Yeah. I just can't see.
I can't go 3-1 because you went 3-1 now. So.
You can. We can win together.
I mean, there was meant to be 4 goals on your game, CK.
It's like you didn't listen to me. I said it to you. I think it's going to be 4-2. What's in the middle of 4 and 2, Willow?
No, I don't. I'm sorry, Karen, back me up, my brother.
Wolves are a good defense.
Man, this is ridiculous.
This guy's fraudulent.
Everyone just go for their scores, okay?
No, I'm just surprised that everyone's confident in a clean sheet. I mean, I know that we're going to probably have a really good joy on them, but I think that Wolves are definitely a team that we struggle against in the same vein of like a Crystal Palace, of strong transitional threat. That's something that is always difficult against this team, and I'm just surprised. I didn't realize it until now when you put it up on the screen. But wow, everyone's got a clean sheet.
It's the law of averages, mate. We haven't beaten them at the Emirates in 4 games, I think.
Oh, but they are good defensively, but the only team better than them defensively on set
is
us.
Exactly. Actually, there's a comment that I want to kind of address. I mean, I saw Ira and someone named AXF. They're mentioning the referees. They're saying, I'm afraid of Atkinson. Given the recent games, maybe it's worth predicting the refs' decisions as well. I mean, it's true. To be fair, like in most games, we've had 3 or 4 decisions that's gone against us, or it's not really been in our favor. It's a good worry to have. But what do you guys think of Atkinson being in charge of the game tomorrow?
Well, doesn't he have like a very poor record for us? Like we concede a lot of fouls.
Yeah,
His highest percentage of penalties is given against us. Sorry, like by far. So obviously, he's a different ref when he's refing one of our games. But I think the players just won't leave the matters down to the ref, and I think that's what we need to do. When we've gotten to this point, not leaving the matters down to the ref, they're not helping us. So when you're playing against them, then you have to put the game in your hands and not let the ref have too much of an influence, even though he will.
You know what it is, Z, mate? Like, I've talked a lot about this both on the timeline and like other streams, but just factually, you look at the number of fouls that this team supposedly commits and then the rate of red cards that this team supposedly gets, and you start looking at the numbers, it's like 7 more than the next closest team since Arteta's gotten in charge. No matter how you slice it, it's odd, and I will never blame the refs for a result, because I think regardless of somebody being corrupt, you can impose your game more, that becomes a non-issue. But at the same token, you absolutely can say that it's gone beyond it all works itself out. Like that narrative where, if everyone gets decisions against them and, it all works themselves out. Well, no, it doesn't, because Arsenal have double the amount of red cards than the next closest competitor.
But even just this season, we have the least tackles, the least interceptions, and the least fouls in the league, but by far the most red cards.
So ultimately it doesn't work itself out. Just factually, it really does not. And so I feel like you can speak two truths here. So I definitely expect a very stupid card decision. I very expect, for example, Thomas Partey to get a yellow card on like his first or third foul of the match. Like I expect those things to happen. But I think that Arsenal have gotten to the point where those things don't dictate our confidence as much.
Yeah.
I think last season it definitely did, but the reason I think now is there's a different defensive solidity in this team where they don't lose their heads. Like I felt like when somebody got a yellow card, there was a lot of hero syndrome in individuals in the team last year that tried to make up for it. So they either stretched extra for a tackle, Granit Xhaka, famous for doing that, or Bukayo trying to do it all on his own, and it led to very individual actions. This team responds to kind of adversity with, oh, you're hurting us? Okay, we will together hurt you. And not to be like a trope in the unity thing that, Arteta's been doing all season. But I think it's a very different kind of reaction I'm seeing to a lot of these, whether it's penalties, whether it's red cards, yellow cards. There's a lot more togetherness within the team that they can respond to those kind of things.
They did have to change their reaction because obviously we've gotten to this point where we're Man United's fourth and 3 games in hand, 4 points behind them, but we've gotten to this point despite the refs. So at this point, you just have to play despite what the refs are going to do, knowing that you may not get easy decisions, but you have to play your game, because then if we play with the mentality that the refs are going to spite us, we can't win against these refs, then you're going to lose, because you're just letting the ref take over the game. Obviously, refs try and make themselves important and much more important than they need to be, but we just have to play despite what the ref does, even if it doesn't give us the penalties that we deserve.
I think Brentford, mate, is the perfect analogy to whatever you're going to do. Factually, there were 3 Stonewall pens at minimum. At minimum 3. And despite that, we still made a very dominant performance, right? Like, I think you can have both, but I do want to point out, it's just completely factual. There is a reputational bias against Arsenal. That can be true. Like, you don't have to lie about that. It absolutely is true. The numbers show it, the decisions show it, and the ambiguity on the rules just show it. But at the same token, I don't want to use it as kind of a stick to be like, oh, that's the reason we lose. Because I think that ultimately, like, you're in charge of your own destiny. But let's call a spade a spade.
Yeah.
I think it does hurt our play though, because it's not just the red cards that hurt my play. It's more actually the yellow cards for me. The amount of times I see like a Rodri be able to make 5 or 6 fouls when people are getting off on a counter attack, and it's like, or McTominay, for instance, him against Leeds was disgusting. Like, if he was an Arsenal player, he would have got sent off about 4 times. But it's the yellow cards where it's like Partey will stop one counter attack, he'll get yellow cards straight away, and then it sets a precedent.
The frustrating thing for me, Willow, mate, is that ultimately, like, those decisions don't cost us games because we've been good, but they can. And
they can, yeah.
and what they do stop is momentum, because we've seen less 3 or 4 nils because of it, in my opinion. So like when you start racking up those chances against Brentford, guys, we could have been 3-0 up inside 20 minutes. With those decisions, there was 2 Stonewall penalties in addition to kind of what we did, and an offside that was very questionable, but fine, you take it. We could have been 3-0 up inside 20 minutes. That sets a very different tone for the match, right? So that for me is kind of the biggest annoyance, and in GIF form, one of those. But yeah, it's kind of I'm glad that this team hasn't let it kind of derail the season in the same way, because it did. Ironically, last year, I would argue that Wolves match was kind of the big reason that our form really dipped. When you look at momentum and stuff, that Louise red card, I think, was a bookmark to kind of the poor form after that. So it's been nice that we've had those calls, and the team has already answered in winning. So I think it just builds a certain mental resilience that they're not going to let that stuff affect them.
Yeah, Corin, do you have anything to add to that? What are you thinking of the referees tomorrow?
It is what it is. Just win the game. Really, we all know what's going on with the refs. They've just not been very good at our games, and that's just the issue. We have to accept it and just move on. I mean, we just have to win the game. That's the main thing. Forget all the other nonsense, because we can't control that. We just have to do what we do. So that's it, really.
All right, cool. I mean, we've basically done everything we needed to do. We've previewed the game. I want George to do his robots. That's the most important thing of the stream.
Well, guys, in due fashion, like, comment, subscribe. Make sure you share this channel to friends and family. Get everyone liking and subscribing. We're growing a lot more, and we really appreciate it. Also, guys, we've been having a couple super chats on the last couple of videos, and just want to say, we really appreciate all the support that you guys give the channel. It lets us get the platform to kind of really grow, and we really do appreciate it. And you can find everybody's socials kind of on their tags down below. I know myself, you can find me at GeorgeV_AFC. Chris, mate, where can they find you?
CK Football, CKFTBO on Twitter.
Nice. And Curran, mate, where can they find you?
You can find me at Curran BoP.
And they can find Willow at the one Willow, and not baby. I know a lot of times when Chris shouts it out, he goes or Willow goes, at the one Willow, baby, and it's not. It's at the one Willow. Just to clarify. But Z, mate, where can they find you?
You can find me at Private Arsenal Z, and please also follow the TikTok account of All Over Passion and the Instagram account as well. I mean, we've started to post some content, and we're just beginning to grow. So yeah, no, thank you. All right, that's it from us, and we'll see you next time.
Peace. After we win 3-0.